So the constitutional basis for the imposition of taxes by local government unit is under Section 5, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution, which provides that each local government unit shall have the power to create its own sources of revenue and to levy taxes, fees, and charges subject to such guidelines and limitations as the Congress may provide, consistent with the basic policy of local autonomy. And such taxes, fees, and charges shall accrue exclusively to the local governments. Okay? So because of this provision under the Constitution, the local government units are empowered to impose or levy taxes, fees, and charges. Take note na ang pwede niya na i-impose are taxes, fees, and charges. In short, TFC. So, tulo na kabuok. Tulo na kabuok ang pwede i-impose sa local government units. However, the Congress can provide for guidelines and limitations to the exercise of such power, di ba? Unlike for the state, di ba? Yung sa national government, yung power to tax na national government, as I've mentioned in our previous discussion, na it is inherent for the state to tax. But for local government units, hindi inherent yung power to tax because the power to tax here is provided for under the Constitution. So, it means to say na kung gustong bawiin or baguhin ng ating Constitution ang power ng local government unit or pwede niyang kunin or i-remove yung power ng local government units under the Constitution, pwede siya. So, meaning to say, kung i-remove yung power ng LGUs in the Constitution, then mawawalan din ng power yung ating mga LGUs. Now, speaking of local government, so ano bang ibig sabihin ng local government? So, it is described as a political subdivision of a nation or state which is constituted by law and has substantial control over local affairs. So, in a unitary system of government, such as the government under the Philippine Constitution, local governments can only be intra-sovereign subdivision of one sovereign nation. It cannot be an imperium in imperio. Anong ibig sabihin nun, Although, nagkaroon ngayon ng parang autonomy or local autonomy yung mga local government units from the national government, it doesn't mean na it is a state. It doesn't mean na isa siyang state independent of the Philippines as a government, Philippines as a government. So, ano lang siya, kumbaga political subdivision lang siya ng government, na meron siyang control over its local affairs. However, it is not considered an independent state of its own. So, kumbaga, ang pag-create ng mga local governments, this is a mere measure of decentralization of the functions of the government. Now, in order to, mayroong question na yung bang provision under the Constitution na Section 5, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution, is it an enabling law? Meaning to say, you can already implement it even without an action from the Congress. So, sa madaling salita, yung bang provision under the 1987 Constitution giving power to the local government units to create their own sources of revenue, pwede na bang automatically mag-impose yung local government unit ng taxes, fees, and charges on the basis of Article 5, Section 5, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution? The answer is no. The the said provision under the Constitution merely grants the local government unit the power to create its own sources of revenues. However, there is a need for the passage of a there is a need for the passage of a local ordinance, in order for the local government unit to implement or to impose taxes, fees, and charges. So, and okay, and the implementation and the imposition by the local government units of taxes, fees, and charges should be based from Republic Act number 7160, otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991. Because going back to Article 5, Section 5 rather, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution, nakalagay dyan na yung power ng local government unit to create their own sources of revenue is subject to the guidelines and limitation as the Congress may provide. So, kailangan yung local government unit in passing an ordinance for the imposition of taxes, fees, and charges, kailangan ito ay nakabase sa local government code, sa provisions ng local government code, dahil doon nakasaad ang guidelines and limitations kung paano i-exercise ng local government unit yung kanilang power of taxation. Now, the nature and source of taxing power of LGUs. Number one, it is a delegated legislative authority. You know already what is delegated legislative authority. Ibig sabihin, yung power ng LGUs ay derived from the power of the state to tax. Hindi siya inherent power. Balikan natin, ano bang ibig sabihin ng inherent power? Di ba yung inherent power, ang ibig sabihin nun, when a state exists, nag-i-exist din kasama ng existence ng state yung kanyang power of taxation. Meaning to say, there is no need for a constitutional provision, no need for any enabling law in order for the state to exercise its power of taxation. Kasi, sabi ko, it is inherent. Meaning, kaakibat na siya when a state exists. Mura siya ila ba? Mura siya og kanang usama sa Tagalog ng ila. Basta mura siya ila sa imuhang lawas nga pag anak nimo naa na gyud na dinha, no? So inherent na siya sa state. So and remember that the power to tax, di ba? It is inherent to the state, no? And there are exception, to the kung yung sinabi natin na the non-delegation, di ba, of powers or non-delegation of authority under the Constitution, that you cannot delegate what has already been delegated. Exception to that rule is the delegation of legislative authority to tax for LGUs, di ba? Isa ito sa mga exceptions to the non-delegation principle. So the power of the local government units to tax is merely derived from Article 10, Section 5 of the 1987 Constitution. And consistent with the provision of the Constitution, the Local Government Code was enacted to give each local government unit the power to create its own sources of revenue and to levy fees, taxes, fees, and charges subject to the statutory guidelines and limitations by Congress as the Congress may provide. So that's for the delegated legislative authority. Now, let's go to revenue-raising power. All LGUs are granted general powers to levy taxes, fees, and charges on any base or subject not otherwise specifically enumerated herein, or taxed under the provisions of the NIRC as amended or other applicable laws. The levy must not be unjust, excessive, oppressive, confiscatory, or contrary to a declared national policy. Now, police power of LGUs. Now, with respect to this power, nandoon din sa RA 7160 yung specific provision on the general welfare clause, no? Kaya, the same with the state, meron ding police power yung ating local government units. And that police power is provided for under RA 7160. And ang tawag natin dyan ay General Welfare Clause. So ang ating LGU, pwede gid siya mag-impose no, og any fees or charges or any fees for regulation. Basta ang ilaha lang irason ana is General Welfare Clause. Okay? Local Tax Ordinance. So, last night, di ba, we ended with parang fundamental principles no, of local taxation. So, I said no that we will discuss tonight local tax ordinance. Now, what should you remember when talking about local tax ordinance? So, number one, sino ba ang may power to pass an ordinance for the imposition of tax, fee, or charges? So, nakalagay sa section 132 na ang power to impose a tax, fee, or charge or to generate revenue under the local government code shall be exercised by the sanggunian of the local government unit concerned through an appropriation ordinance. Okay? Sorry, through an appropriate ordinance pala yan. Okay, hindi yan appropriation. Nagtaka ako. Bakit may appropriation? Okay? Appropriate ordinance. And another important principle that you should remember for local tax ordinance, no such taxes, fees, or charges shall be imposed without a public hearing having been held prior to the enactment of the ordinance. That's under section 187 of the local government code. So in order for a local tax ordinance to be valid, there should be a public hearing. Okay? And aside from public hearing, copies of the provincial, city, and municipal tax ordinances or revenue measures shall be published in full for 3 consecutive days in a newspaper of local circulation or posted in at least 2 conspicuous and publicly accessible places under section 188 of the local government code. So you should remember these requirements no, for local tax ordinance. Number 1, it must be exercised by the sanggunian. So hindi pwede yung local chief executive ang magpasa ng local tax ordinance. That would be void. Second, the passage of a tax measure must be through an appropriate ordinance. Hindi pwede resolution, kundi ordinance lang. Okay? Resolution. Otherwise, if resolution lang ay pinasa ng local government unit or ng sanggunian, then that resolution will not be valid. Strict tayo basta local tax ordinance. Now, validity of a local tax ordinance. So we have this rule, no, that an ordinance is presumed valid unless declared otherwise by a court in an appropriate proceeding. So, kunyari, yung isang ordinance na ipasa siya ng local government unit, hindi natin nakita na meron pala siyang invalid na mga provisions, tapos yun, it followed the procedure for the passage of a local tax ordinance, like it has undergone 3 readings, no, and then after that, na-approve on the 3rd reading and then forwarded to the local chief executive for his or her approval. And then it was approved by the local chief executive or it has lapsed into law because of the inaction of the local chief executive. So naging effective or and then it was published. Then naging effective yung local tax ordinance without noticing a specific provision na invalid pala. So in that case, pag naipasa na yung ordinansa, even if it contains some provisions na hindi in accordance with the local government code, still that ordinance will take effect. Okay? So magkakaroon siya ng effect. So meaning to say, taxes, fees, and charges that have accrued therefrom because of its effectivity will be collected by the local government unit. So it's up to those who question, or to those who raises issue on the constitutionality or validity of the local tax ordinance to file a proper action in order to declare the ordinance void. So, yan ang ibig sabihin ng presumption natin. So, once maipasa yung ordinansa, presume valid talaga yan. So, kailangan mo pang mag-file sa korte in an appropriate proceeding before that ordinance will be declared void or invalid because it is unconstitutional or because it contravenes the local government code. Now, what are the tests or what are the requisites for the validity of a local tax ordinance? Number one, it must not contravene the Constitution or any statute. So if you review a tax ordinance, maghanap ka lang ng laws or provisions sa Constitution regarding a particular measure or a particular tax, fee, or charge. So kapag wala kang makita, hindi mo makita na wala kang nakitang prohibition, wala kang nakitang contradictory provision ng Constitution or ng statute, then pasado siya sa first requisite. Kasi you did not find any provision that contravenes with the Constitution or any statute. Second, it must not be unfair or oppressive. Third, it must not be partial or discriminatory. Fourth, it must not prohibit but may regulate trade. So ano ibig sabihin ng it must not prohibit but may regulate trade? Iba kasi yung prohibition sa regulation. Yung prohibition is pinagbabawal mo ang isang transaksyon or ang isang business, for example. Kumbaga, you impose the tax, ang epekto nun is magsara or mag-close or hindi na magpatuloy yung isang business or establishment. Yung regulation naman, kumbaga, hindi siya necessarily ma-stop, pero i-regulate lang natin. Yung best example ko nito, like yung mga rally gani, di ba? Di ba yung mga rally is, digit siya bawal. Hindi talaga siya bawal, no? Pero, kailangan mo mag-secure ng permit in order for it to be regulated. So, yung time, tsaka yung venue, yun lang kumbaga ang ipe-prescribe ng local government. Pero as to whether or not you can conduct a rally, the answer is yes, you can. However, yung time, yung manner, at saka yung venue will be regulated. So, another is like for example, itong sa kanaganing election, di ba? Like, pag mag-advertise ka or nakay mga campaign nimo sa TV or sa radyo, hindi bawal yung mag-campaign sa TV or sa radyo, pero regulated siya by time, no? Yung exposure ng iyong campaign, di ba? So that's the difference between prohibition and regulation, okay? Yung unfair naman, oppressive, partial, discriminatory, alam niyo na to because this also applies, no? Or nanggaling ito or itong mga test na ito are derived, no, from the provisions of the Constitution with respect to the exercise of the state of its power of taxation. Now, must be general and consistent with public policy. And must not be unreasonable. So, hindi siya dapat unreasonable. Now, let's go to effectivity of ordinances. So, kailan ba nagiging effective yung ordinance? Okay? Okay, matapos magpasa ng local sanggunian ng ordinance for local tax measure for the imposition of taxes, fees, and charges. After nyan, so it underwent 3 readings, no? 3 readings, approved on the 3rd reading, approved by the local chief executive, or naglapse yung period for the approval, kaya na-deemed approved siya. So pagkatapos nun, okay, hanggang doon tayo, di ba? Ay, hindi pa pala, meron pa palang public hearing, tsaka yung publication, di ba? So ngayon, after ng approval, the secretary to the sanggunian shall post, no? I-post yan yung local tax ordinance, not later than 5 days from approval. The text of the ordinance shall be disseminated and posted in Filipino or English and in the language or dialect understood by the majority of the people of the LGU and the secretary to record such fact. So dapat maintindihan dapat no yung ordinance. For ordinances with penal sanction, kung meron yang mga penalties or like fine or imprisonment, in addition to posting, the ordinance must be published in a newspaper of general circulation within the province where the local legislative body belongs. And meron yang mga specific pa na exceptions to the rule, no? Sabi dyan, and in the absence daw of a newspaper of general circulation within the province, posting shall be made in all municipalities and cities of the province where the sanggunian of origin is situated. So kung walang newspaper of general circulation ng isang locality, then posting na lang daw sa lahat ng munisipyo at city na under sa province where the sanggunian of origin is situated. In the case of highly urbanized and independent component cities, the main features of the ordinance duly enacted shall, in addition to being posted, be published once in a local newspaper of general circulation within the city, provided that in the absence thereof, the ordinance shall be published in any newspaper of general circulation. So take note of the rule on publication under Section 59 of the Local Government Code. Kasi aside from what is provided here in my slide, may mga specifics pa yan kung kunyari walang newspaper of general circulation. Okay? So take note that yung publication natin for those ordinance with penal sanctions is 3 consecutive days. Okay? Take note of the 3 consecutive days rule. Okay? Now, the ordinance now will take effect after 10 days, from posting. From posting in the bulletin board at the entrance of the provincial capital, city, municipal, or barangay hall, and in at least 2 other conspicuous places in the LGU concerned. That is for, itong last na item is if hindi required yung publication. Okay? Now, yung mga tax ordinances, just like ordinary na mga ordinance, nasa subject yan for review with respect to municipal and component cities. The review will be done by the provincial sanggunian. But for barangay, yung kanilang tax ordinance will be reviewed by the municipal or city sanggunian. And the review will be done within 3 days after its approval pala, i-forward yung ating tax ordinance sa reviewing sanggunian. Okay? Within 3 days after the approval. And within 30 days, no, the reviewing sanggunian will conduct a review for a period of 30 days. Okay? And take note na yung period na yan, pag hindi sila nakapasa ng resolution or action approving the ordinance or confirming the tax ordinance, then the ordinance will be deemed approved. Okay? Now, paano ba mag-review yung province? Okay? Nakasaad sa local government code na the only test daw in determining whether or not to confirm the ordinance or to approve the ordinance is whether the ordinance is enacted within the powers conferred upon the local sanggunian. Meaning, kung yung ordinansa ba na ipinasa ng local sanggunian is within its power, no, to enact. So, yun lang talaga ang test na ginagamit, okay? So, if the province finds no na the ordinance was enacted beyond the powers conferred upon the LGU, then the province will declare the ordinance invalid. Okay, declare nila yan invalid. And dapat the declaration should be done within the 30-day period because if maglapse na yung period, ma-expire yung 30 days without action by the province, then that ordinance will be deemed approved. Now, with respect naman to tax ordinances passed by the barangay, di ba yung review nila will be conducted by the municipal or city sanggunian. So, ang test natin dyan, if consistent with the law, if inconsistent with the law, hindi siya i-declare invalid ng munisipyo or ng city. Ibabalik lang siya to the barangay for adjustment, amendment, or notification. At ano ang epekto kung ito ay ni-return to the barangay? Sabi ng Section 57 of the Local Government Code, the ordinance will be suspended. Okay? Until such time na ma-amend na siya or until such time that it is adjusted, amended, or the revision called for is effected. Okay? Now, if a taxpayer, wants to question the constitutionality or legality of the tax ordinance, then the remedy of the taxpayer is to file an appeal to the Secretary of Justice. Okay? Now, let's talk about appeal to the Secretary of Justice. So, kailan ka mag-appeal ngayon sa Secretary of Justice? Sabi ng batas, within 30 days daw from the effectivity of the ordinance, yan lang yung period allowed for you to file an appeal to the Secretary of Justice. And the Secretary of Justice shall render a decision within 60 days from the date of receipt of the appeal. However, take note na yung pag-apila natin sa Secretary of Justice will not suspend the effectivity of the ordinance. So, patuloy pa rin, Once mag-take effect na ang ordinance, makakolekta na gyud ang local government unit bisan pa nga imo filean og appeal sa Secretary of Justice. Kay niingon man diri na the appeal shall not have the effect of suspending the effectivity of the ordinance and the accrual and payment of the tax, fee, or charge levied therein will also is also not suspended. Okay? So, hindi din suspended yung pag-accrue ng tax, fee, or charge based on the tax ordinance. Within 30 days from the adverse decision, kunyari, yung decision ng Secretary of Justice denied yung appeal mo, so you have 30 days, to file an appropriate proceeding with a court of competent jurisdiction. Pero, kunyari, yung SOJ, hindi sila nakarender ng desisyon within 30-day period. So, within 30 days pala from the lapse of the 60-day period. So, remember the mandatory periods here to question the constitutionality of tax ordinances. Number one, the appeal to the Secretary of Justice must be made within 30 days from the effectivity of the tax ordinance. Second, then from the receipt of the decision of the Secretary of Justice, the aggrieved party has a period of 30 days within which to file an appeal before the courts. The 30 days, no? However, when the Secretary of Justice fails to act on the appeal, after the lapse of the 60 days, a party could already proceed and seek relief in court. So, that's the 30, 30, 60 mandatory periods na, that we should observe for appeals, no, or for in questioning the constitutionality or validity of a tax ordinance. Now, let's go to the authority of the LGU to adjust local tax rates. Now, take note of this item, no? Under Section 191 of the Local Government Code, the local government units are given the authority to adjust the tax rates as prescribed in the code, not oftener than once every 5 years, but in no case shall such adjustment exceed 10% of the rates fixed under this code. So, although the LGU, no, can adjust local tax rate, anong ibig sabihin nito? When you say adjust local tax rate, ang ibig sabihin lang nito, kunyari, merong plan yung LGU na increase nila yung kanilang tax rates or katong ilahang amount, no, fixed amount for their taxes. They should observe, no, the limitations provided under Section 191, diba? So number one is the frequency, meaning kailan ba pwedeng mag-adjust ng local tax rates? Second is amount. Magkano ba ang allowed by law for the LGU to increase its tax rates, di ba? So, sabi dito, the frequency is not oftener than once every 5 years. So, maghintay ka muna, pag once nagpasa na yung LGU ngayon ng tax code, hintay ka muna ng 5 years bago ka mag-update or mag-adjust ng tax rates. Pero there are cases, no, na nag-amend sila ng kanilang tax code not later than 5 years, no? Meaning, kaka-adjust lang nila ng local tax rate, nag-amend na naman sila ng local tax code. Bawal ba yun? The answer is not necessarily. Depende kung ano yung amendments na ginawa nila. Did the LGU adjust the local tax rate? Did they increase? Nag-increase ba sila ng local tax rates? Kung hindi naman, walang problema. Kasi ang focus ng provision na ito is kung mag-adjust lang sa local tax rate, mag-increase sila sa rates. Pero kung wala sila gibago sa rates, then nalang sila gi-amend, no? Sa mga some other provisions, then Section 191 of the LGC will not apply. So, hindi ito mag-apply itong dalawang limitation. So, take note also na if ang gi-change ng LGU is not taxes or are not taxes, kundi fees and charges. Dili tax ang ilang increase, kundi fees and charges lang. It will not be covered by Section 191 of the Local Government Code because it is clear here, no, that the limitations apply only to local tax rates, to adjustments of local tax rates. Now, next item. LGU's authority to grant and withdraw local tax exemption privileges. So, I think basic naman yan, no, sa power to enact laws include includes the power to withdraw. Alam naman natin yan, di ba? Kasi parang kasali na yan or inherent yung withdrawal or repeal ng laws sa power to enact and power to grant exemptions, di ba? So, local government units may take note again through ordinances. So, kung sa pamamagitan ng ordinance, gumawa tayo ng tax ordinance or ng tax, nag-impose tayo ng tax fee and charges, pag maggawa tayo ng exemption, incentives, o reliefs, sa pamamagitan din ng ordinansa, hindi pa de resolution lang. Okay? So, ordinance talaga. Unless otherwise provided in this code, tax exemptions or incentives granted to are presently enjoyed by all persons including GOCCs except local water districts, co-ops under RA 6883, non-stock and non-profit hospitals, and educational institutions are hereby withdrawn upon the effectivity of this code. So, actually, hindi naman LGU yung nagpasa nito kasi this is part of the local government code, no? Na nung pinasa ang RA 7160, winidraw ng Congress yung exemptions tsaka incentives ng mga certain persons, no, whether natural or juridical, including GOCCs. Kaya right now, yung mga GOCCs natin, liable na sila for local taxation. Okay? Kaya presently, taxable na sila. Okay? Pero, with respect to this provision, itong authority to grant and withdraw local tax exemption, so pwede talagang mag-grant ng incentives or exemption from taxes yung local government unit. Now, we go to the residual taxing power of local government unit. So, I've mentioned to you already, no, this principle na yung power ng LGU to tax, hindi siya limited to those enumerated under the local government code. I just recently discovered, no, this provision kasi my job is reviewing, kami kasi nagre-review kami ng mga ordinance, no, ng mga component municipalities. And so, I came across certain imposition na hindi ko makita sa local government code. So, hinanap ko kung can the LGU ba impose any tax not enumerated in the local government code. So, I found this section 186, no, of the local government code, which says na yung LGU, pwede talaga siyang mag-impose ng tax fees or charges on any base or subject kahit na ito ay hindi naka-enumerate sa local government code. Or hindi tax under the provisions of the NIRC as amended, okay? Or other applicable laws. So pwede talaga, no? Sabi pa ng libro, where there is neither a grant nor a prohibition by statute, the tax power of LGUs must be deemed to exist, although Congress may provide statutory limitations and guidelines. And remember the exclusionary principle, no? Na we mentioned yesterday, no? Na isa yan sa mga limitation ng LGU to tax kasi they cannot tax, no, those taxes that are already imposed by the national government. Okay? And provided that the tax fee or charge shall not be unjust, excessive, oppressive, confiscatory, contrary to declared national policy, and provided further that the ordinance levying such TFC shall not be enacted without any prior public hearing conducted for the purpose. So I've already discussed that earlier. No? Now, power to impose penalties, no? Can the LGU impose penalties under their tax ordinances? The answer is yes, no? They can. They are authorized to impose penalties as provided for under Section 168 of the Local Government Code as well as Section 516 of the Local Government Code. Now, for surcharges, 25% of the delinquent tax fee or charge. So, ang laki, di ba? So, kapag hindi ka makabayad ng tax fee or charge, meron ka kaagad surcharge na 25%. Now, for interest naman, the interest should not exceed 2% per month of unpaid, take note, unpaid tax fee or charge and surcharges. Meaning, i-add yung dalawa, TFC tsaka surcharge times the rate of interest. No? And magpapatak yan starting from the date na hindi siya nabayaran until fully paid. But hanggang 36 months lang. So, kunyari, 60 months ka nang hindi nagbabayad ng tax. So, may limitation din yung interest. Hanggang 36 months lang daw. So, siniswerte yung taxpayer, no? So, again, for penalties, fine. This is under Section 516 of the Local Government Code. With respect to sanggunian of the province, city, and municipality, they can impose a fine not less than 1,000 nor more than 5,000 pesos, nor shall imprisonment be less than 1 month nor more than 6 months, no? At the discretion of the court. So, yan siya ang fine at saka imprisonment for province, city, and municipality. But for barangay, the penalties, fine only, okay? Not less than 100 nor more than 1,000 pesos. No imprisonment for barangay. Okay? So that ends my discussion for tonight.